What's up guys, Jordan from Bennett's Customs, and welcome to 1 through 10 most essential tools that I use in the workshop. If you are starting out in fabricating or welding, I feel like these are kind of some crucial, pieces that you could use that would definitely benefit you and help you create those pieces that you are making. So starting from number one, most important and most commonly that you see me use is simple layout tools. When it comes to laying anything out before any cutting or welding is done, I like to use certain tools. And I kind of have a whole drawer full of them, but these are probably the most common ones I would use. First off, always is a scribe. I use a scribe a lot, and with the scribe, I use a Sharpie. Now, you can use die-cum layout, and that works perfectly fine. I just have run out and seem to just be able to buy these and use these, and they work really well for kind of that initial layout, and then you use your scribe to use, and it really highlights where that line's going to be. A scribe is important because it's very accurate, whereas a Sharpie, on the other hand, is not that accurate, but it can be if you know what side of the line you're going to be cutting on. So with this, I always use a scribe or a pen over top of a Sharpie, because after a while, that Sharpie becomes blunt and your measuring can vary from quite a bit. So definitely suggest using a scribe or a pen over it, or if you are using a Sharpie, to know what side you're cutting on, your cut line or your fold line or whatever. You just got to make sure that you keep a mental note of what side needs to happen. Second common most thing is a center punch. I use a spring activated one. There is so many different ones. You can get a traditional one with a hammer and that setup, but I just feel like these work really well to be able to give you a nice clean center punch before drilling your holes. Working again, veneer calipers. I use these all the time. Literally, they are in my back pocket, and I will pull this out multiple times throughout the day, using it for scribing, measuring, and everything around it. So you want to definitely have two sets. This is a sacrificial set because I use this a lot for scribing because they work really well. There's tons of other tools that you can use that do that, but this one is just sort of a bonus. It's got a digital readout, so it's just easy to put it out there, put it on the edge of something and scribe, and you have a nice parallel line to what you're measuring. But if you are working with setting up bearings in a rear end for a quick change, or doing something on your motor, you definitely want to keep those really clean ones that are going to be very accurate. You don't want to have any burrs or anything, because they're very crucial to read very accurately. So don't use your nice ones. Dividers, I use these a lot too. These help me measure out radiuses for circles. They work great for doing the exact same thing as a veneer calipers would do when coming to an edge and wanting to measure something out. Metal rulers, they're crucial. I use them all the time. They always have a straight edge. They have a little bit of flex to them, but they work really well for laying stuff out. I have these in multiple sizes, all the way up to nearly 2 meters. Speed square. Speed square is very important. This helps you, again, get on something with a clean edge, and you can mark it, and you always have a 90-degree edge, or you can work on your angles, your 45s, or anything in between. This is important as well. This is a degree finder, so we can put this on any surface that is metal. It will not magnetize to stainless or aluminum, but you can still fit it there. There's tons of guys that make 3D printed brackets where you can put this on tubing if you're doing cages or bumpers for your four-wheel drives or your cars. But this is very accurate, and it will get you, getting everything laid out very precise. So you can never take a little bit too much time to really initially get your layout stuff sorted. So this would be kind of a number one. So your common layout tools that you're going to be using for measuring and stuff like that. So we're already going on the idea that you have a welder, you got your safety equipment, you got your grinders, your cutting equipment basically, and this is kind of the, okay, let's start making something. Okay, number two, probably another common thing I'm using a lot while I'm dealing with sheet metal and creating panels or around that area is your hammer and dollies. They're very important. They're important to keep clean and polished as well. So you got your sandbags. They help for forming stuff. You can kind of shape a piece of steel in there. They help create stretch where you can then form something and create a three-dimensional object. They also work really well for adding a little bit of weight to something. So if you are welding something that's in an awkward area, you can always throw one of these on top and they kind of dissipate and help keep stuff weighted down while you're welding. There's so many different hammer and dollies to choose from. You can buy basic kits. The basic kits, you can spend a little bit of money or you can spend just a little bit more money and buy kind of a really nice hammer and dolly kit. If you see them out at garage sales, definitely have a look at them. Make sure the faces are pretty clean. If you think that you can kind of sand them out and repolish them, it's always great to be able to kind of find those. I love going to garage sales and trying to find those neat hammers. So this is, these came out of a kit from Heron Forbes. I've had them for almost 10 years now. And I have other ones in there that I've had for way longer, but this is just kind of a common one that you're gonna find. I always try and keep them polished because when you're using this surface will transfer into the surface that you are working on. So if you have two pieces of sheet metal that are butt welded together and you're attacking them and you're trying to hammer them out, it is very nice to have them polished and clean because that will transfer into it, especially with your dolly as well. This is a little slapper. This one works well. Cornfield Customs, Mike Wagner makes a really nice one of these. You can also make one out of an old file, an old leaf spring. There's plenty of different tricks that you can do that are inexpensive. So if you jump online, type in do-it-yourself slappers and you'll find a whole bunch of them. Just make sure it's flat. They have ones that do have a slight curve in them and you just want them to be polished as well.
Do-it-yourself slapper?
Yeah, a do-it-yourself slapper basically. Do it yourself. Go home and look up a do-it-yourself slapper and see what'll come up in the Google search. Another one too, this one's very good for creating some shape or form. This works really well. This is the Mother Tucker. This is designed and manufactured by Carl at Make It Custom. You can jump onto his website and you can get one of these. They are incredible. They do have two Delrin sides and these are replaceable. So if you go and flog them out, then you can go and get yourself a new set. So that is definitely something I use a lot of when I am shaping something, along with different style sandbags. I have multiple shapes, multiple sizes. I have ones with sand in them. I have ones with lead shot in them. It all depends on what you're trying to create. They kind of help for each job. But just a standard round, say this is a 10-inch one or a 12-inch one that's just full of sand. They just work really well for if you're wanting to shape something. Okay, another very important tool that I use, number 3, being the Clecos. If you guys aren't familiar with Clecos, they are very good to hold sheet metal together. So if you are making a quarter panel or a custom feature on your car and you want to hold that piece of sheet metal up to gradually get the form or the shape that you're after, or trying to line it up to scribe before you're going to cut and weld it, these things work incredibly well. You've seen me use them all the time. They use a specific Cleco plier, and once they are installed and pulled back, they hold the two pieces together very tightly. These work a little bit better than using like a sheet metal screw. Now, if you kind of have a impact and sheet metal screws at home and you're holding stuff together, they do work. But there's probably only a certain amount of times that you can pull that screw out and put it back in before you're going to strip the inside of it. There's only a very minor bit that's going to hold that thread on. So these, you could put it in that same 1/8-inch hole 100 times and pull it out, and you're not going to disturb the hole. Everything's going to stay clean. And the bonus is when you go to weld that hole is really clean and flush. So you can just weld that up and you'll never even know it's there. So they come in different sizes. These would be your 1/8-inch ones. The gold ones here on this rack are 3/16. I most commonly probably would use the 1/8-inch ones because it is a smaller hole. So it is easier to fill if I'm TIG welding them up. The bigger the hole, the more heat, the more filler rod you have to use. So be mindful of that, but sometimes these things do, these hold a little bit more pressure. So if you want to have something a bit tighter, the 3/16 ones would work a lot better. They do make really neat little clamps as well that hold a serious amount of pressure too. So if you just wanted to keep two together on an edge, they make all these types of little clamps. Number 4 would be a very good set of aviation or sheet metal snips. These I use all the time, and I cannot stress enough to try and buy a good set of them right off the bat. Spend your money wisely, find a very good quality, whether it is in the States or in Australia or anywhere. Do a little bit of homework, do a little bit of research, but find a set that might be a little bit more expensive than sort of your common ones that you could buy at a tool store. But these are something that if you take care of them, they're going to last a very long time. And if you get a good quality set, they will show. They will reflect on your edge that you're cutting and on the material you are using. Another snip that you can use as well is a bench style one. So these are a throatless shear, and they work really well for creating radiuses or getting nice straight lines. So these definitely help creating those shapes that you are trying to do on your sheet metal. So between these and the aviation snips, they will get you sorted to cut your metal. And nibblers, which I don't have a pair of. I would love to have a pair of, but an electric shears or nibblers for big sheets where you're going to cut very close to where you want to create a piece. They're definitely going to be a little bit nicer than using your old traditional cutting wheel on your grinder. Depending on where you want to lay all these tools out, it is sort of hard to number them from 1 to 10 because I use all of them all the time. But coming up in number 5 is clamps. They are crucial. They are the ones that are going to be holding stuff together, whether you're doing structural stuff or sheet metal work. Your G-clamps, they come in multiple shapes, multiple sizes, multiple depths. These are very crucial, and I have multiple of them hanging off the side of the fab table, and I use them every single day, whether it's holding something to cut or grind or shape something to, actually holding a piece into place before we start to weld or fabricate it. Again, same deal. These are your vice grips. So you have your C-clamps. These ones have the little feet on them. They're nice and flat, so they hold the sheet metal nice and flat together if you are going to use them for something like that. You can get them in different depths. You can get them in different shapes, different heights. One thing that I could probably tell you is to, again, when it comes to spending a little bit of money on them, you can't go wrong with the actual vice grip brand, and there is other brands that lead very closely to those. Try and steer away from the real cheap ones because they don't really like to operate that well. Their clamping pressure is a little bit off. Sometimes the tooling themselves doesn't really want to line up, and again, the adjustments are a little bit off. So, spend the money wisely again, but clamping again, once you have a set of these, they're going to last you a very long time if you take care of them. Obviously, don't throw them across your shed when you get angry. Just put them down delicately, go over to a pillow and scream in it. Okay, number 6, whether they are air or electric, you're going to have some sort of sanding or grinding equipment. You see me using a lot of air stuff because I have a large air compressor that sits out the back, and the shop is fitted out with hose reels and a full air setup. So I use a lot of 90-degree air tools, and I try and find the ones that kind of give you a max amount of rotations per minute for what they are. So you want to try and get some good quality ones that have a lot of grunt in them. The last thing you want to get is sort of a cheap angle grinder where as soon as you put some pressure on it, it dies because it doesn't have the guts to be able to push through it. So that is important to know because there's a lot of cheap ones out there that you can find on all these online sites that people buy stuff off of, but they might not be the best quality. So definitely do a little bit of homework on what the RPM range is that they do and what they're going to give you for an output. So I use multiple of them. I have different ones set up for different things. I have ones that have soft backings and hard backings. I have ones that have barely any backing, and I use square pieces for blending. These are all kind of things that I would use throughout different various projects. A finger grinder. When I first picked this up, I didn't think I would be using it that much, and I literally have this sort of at my right hand. So this is a really great little setup. It's great for knocking tiny little tacks off if you had to before you actually make contact to the sheet metal. It's great for blending. I made some really cool cast feet for the Model A that we were creating, and this, basically I used this the whole time to blend all those welds out to make them look like one piece. So these little finger grinders, or belt sanders they're called, they work incredibly well. You can get the belts in all different grits. They last a long time too, surprisingly. I didn't think they would. And the orange ones, these guys are definitely from SB Tools. They are an Australian brand. And we've kind of been working very closely with them, not trying to actually sell their product, but I've used them, I've abused them, and they're still holding up to the test. So can't say anything bad about them. Again, another big one is the DA sander. I use this a lot. This helps me sort of blend and finish out stuff after I've welded, I've hammer and dollied. We've kind of got all those little highs and lows out. This is just a really nice way to finish it off. Again, you can get them with sticky backs or Velcro backs. You can get interface pads that go in between them, so they're a little bit softer if you're trying to blend something a little bit more, if you're coming more into the paint side of stuff. But yeah, you cannot go wrong. These are pretty inexpensive. I think this one was like $99, but there are ones that are slightly cheaper and a little bit more. So that's just all coming down to personal preference. And again, I've explained it a couple times. Just do your research, do your homework, and buy what's going to be good for yourself. So number 7 is surface gauges. The reason why this is kind of at number 7 is they are not very crucial, but when you have one, you use it all the time. Can you live without one? Certainly. There's all certain, things that you could create to get the same result. But purchasing one, it's gonna go in your toolbox, and trust me, you will use it knowing that it's there. These things work very well for creating an even surface line. So if we were creating something and we wanted to scribe a line around it to match the surface that we have on there, these surface gauges work really well. Now, this one was from a garage sale. I think it cost me like $2 or $3, and I've used this so much. I've owned it for probably about 20 years, and it has done the justice for everything. I've only upgraded because I had the opportunity to be able to get a digital one. Now, do I still use this? All the time. Do I use this one? Definitely. So they kind of have, in certain aspects, maybe they have a little job for themselves, but the digital one is great for a readout. You can lock it, you can set it, and it's got a very nice sharp scribe on there where you can kind of run your surface gauge. This also works for measuring something. If you have something sitting on something very flat and you wanted to measure it, this works extremely well for it too. So it's not just for laying stuff out or creating a scribe line. You can measure tons of stuff with it too. So these are very important. They're not very crucial, but if they do end up in your toolbox, you will use them a lot. Number 8 are your profile or radius gauges. Now, there are a ton of different ones out there. Again, I just happen to have a very nice Japan's Customs one from Carl himself, who manufactures these. He does have kind of a 2.0 version, and he also does sell a radius style. So they're a bunch of teardrops that come on a keychain, and they're really good for kind of laying out your radiuses. There is different setups for different things. So this one would be more or less for, matching a radius on a 3-dimensional object or a 2-dimensional object if you're trying to create that nice curve. So this is going to have multiple ones on there that you can utilize then to match to your English wheel or to your planishing setup, to your hammer and dolly work. This will kind of help you. Now, if you're in the market of trying to create a shape like a bead on the side of the Model A, or that bottom feature line that we created for the Hemi Coupe, these ones work really well too. So these have little needles on them, and they can be pushed in, and they actually create a little profile. You can then take that profile, draw it all out on a set of dies if you're making something for the power hammer, or if you're just trying to match something or create the shape, then you can use these. There are so many different variables when it comes to this, but again, look at what's going to work for you, what the job that you want to do is, whether you're trying to get a profile or an actual radius. There's going to be tons of those. All right, number 9 on the list, but also very crucial. Kick shrinker. If you guys aren't familiar with these, they stretch or shrink sheet metal. They don't really work anything more than, say, 1.6 is probably max that you're going to be using in this. So if you guys are out there trying to shrink big plate, these aren't going to help you. But if you're creating some sheet metal objects and you need to shrink that edge or start to shape something, these are going to work very well for you. They have 2 different sets of jaws in them. They have a nice throat depth in there. You use your foot, you press down, and then you can go through and the jaws do themselves. Either if they're shrinking ones or non-shrinking ones, they're essentially going to do, they come down and they'll pull together to shrink, or they come down and they stretch to stretch. So depending on what you're trying to create, being able to have those jaws to interchange them works really well. You can just run them until they, you've used them a million times, and then you have a fresh set of jaws in there. So once you start wearing them out, which is rare, then you have a fresh set of jaws that you can throw in there. So check out Heron Forbes Machinery House to get one if you are in Australia. Number 10, but certainly not missed, is cardboard for creating your shapes that you're going to use. Whether or not you're making a 3-dimensional object like a fuel tank, or if you're going to use something as a guide to, use your handheld plasma cutter that a lot of people don't know you can use it for. Straw board is so important, and I cannot emphasize that enough, because I've tried to use traditional cardboard and the cardboard that's kind of got the flute inside of them, and you can never really get a good enough template. It's not accurate enough. Whereas this straw board, this stuff is so incredible to work with. It always keeps flat as long as you store these flat and in a clean place. These ones I've obviously used, so you can see that they have, started to wear. They come in certain sizes, certain shapes, and different ounces. So there's a 24 ounce, a 48 ounce. I believe there's even a thicker one. The most common one I use would be 24. If I was going to be using a shape and doing multiple cuts, say if I was going to use that handheld plasma torch and I was using this as a guide, I would probably jump to the 48 ounce just because it's a little bit thicker. It's going to hold its edge a little bit longer, and you're going to get less burn through. It's going to basically stay longer, give you a little bit more life. So, but this stuff is amazing to work with. You can create any type of shapes. You can basically make a whole 3-dimensional object and hold it into the floor. You've seen me do it with that fuel tank that I built for my friend's 34 coupe. And we made the whole thing out of cardboard, and it was a lot easier to adjust those measurements with cardboard than it is working with stainless or aluminum. So definitely go get some straw board. Here I get it from a craft store, but a craft store is going to charge you a small fortune. So if there's other places that you can get them more wholesale, I would definitely suggest doing that, because you will go through a fair bit of this. And again, keep your templates. You may not ever need them, but if you have that little storage where you can put these somewhere, different shapes, different, creations that you've made, keep them, because you never know. Sometimes you'll just go, wait a minute, I need that. Well, thank you very much for your time, you guys. Hopefully there is one small part of that you can take home and utilize for what you are creating, whether it's building some really cool hot rods, some customs, 4-wheel drive stuff, or just sculpting whatever you're creating. Doesn't even necessarily have to be in those lines with wheels. It could be anything you're creating. So don't be afraid to get back out into the workshop and start to create, utilize those hands. Hopefully these tools will kind of help you do that. And if you do want to learn a little bit more about sheet metal stuff, we do have an online course coming through. We actually start filming it next week, which we are very excited about. So if you want to know a little bit more information, the link will be beside this video. Jump on, have a read through, and if you are interested, put your name down or your email for the wait list, because spots are going to be limited. There'll be so much more information that'll be in there to get you moving as far as creating stuff. So thank you.